Hi, good afternoon, it's me, Mr. Rushby, head teacher, St Thomas Primary School. Alright, just checking in and saying hello. Hopefully I've got a few things here I can share with my families, or anybody else who has any thoughts, but most importantly to communicate some stuff for school, for children, for families, to make sure everyone's okay. I've decided to seclude myself from my family and move into social isolation, not because I'm unwell, but so that I can broadcast from my family tree house. So I'm now out in the garden, which seemingly a very safe place to be, I think, given what we're all expected to do. Quick tour for what you can see. I've got a flag for added clout, so the things that I say sound more important. I think that's what Boris tries to do, doesn't he? So he has his Union Jack there. I haven't got a Union Jack, so I've replaced it with the flag of the region of Brittany in northern France. So hopefully that will do the job in making everything that I say so much more important. Agenda. A couple of things that I wanted to share that I'm finding it difficult to get out there to our families and to be able to say in the right way, so I thought I'd put a few things together, and a picture of a Lowry, nice northern painting just to cheer you all up. First of all, just to say I'm missing the children. It was very strange on Friday to come home, to leave the building and not know when we may go back, and I know that's going to cause a little bit of concern amongst children. They will be unsettled. It's nice to check in and to say hello to everyone, and I hope that everyone's fit and well, and I hope the kids are smiling and enjoying themselves, and we'll talk a little bit about homework and how to manage those things in a bit, but there's definitely some good advice and an opinion that I can share with you. First thing on my COVID HQ agenda for today, critical care. I've got a website now for this. We've been through a bit of a process. My week's been frantic, receiving information, dealing with things. The other day when we couldn't, when school was closed, it was purely to be able to make sure that I was doing things right, that I was taking heed of Boris's statements on Monday night, not putting anybody at any risk, and I didn't really feel sufficiently confident to sustain what was happening from Friday. So Friday we had this information: key workers, children with EHCP plans, vulnerable children, looked after children, or children with an allocated social worker could still come back into school. That was delivered by Boris and his pals last week. The difficulty with that is that there wasn't sufficient sort of information as to how that could function. So the next job was, right, let's see how we can get this done in the correspondence. It's been really hard to correspond with everyone, particularly in 60 characters or less via text, when you're dealing with a global pandemic, and also to pester people with statements, and to make sure you get the tone right on the website when you're sharing these things. I respect our families too much to want to upset them or to mislead them or to get things wrong, so hopefully the video will kind of help a little bit with that. So with this one, key workers, big long list of people who could supposedly be eligible. Since then it's been tidied up, thankfully, because that list generally kind of included pretty much everyone. Then we had a big reaction, people wanted to get places. I understand why, job security, things like that. Since then it's been made really clear that the safety is paramount and that staying at home is the number one thing. So for all of those things, any of those children, vulnerable, special needs, key worker children, number one thing, like everybody else, stay at home. Anybody who leaves the house currently is adding risk, and children are susceptible. We want to make sure, like everyone else, that they're not passing anything on, they're not getting anything. My worry at the start was if we increase the numbers, we open school partial, 15 children, that's going to take a minimum of probably 5 to 10 staff, including cleaners, myself, admin staff, teaching staff, support staff, caretaker, everybody included in that process, all of which, like everyone else, have families and the rest of. But ultimately it would create a situation which could create more casualties potentially for the NHS than we are supporting. So what I mean by that is you know, if the agenda is to lessen the strain on the NHS, I'm not sure we would be supporting that process by creating an environment where, or a school where we may have 25 people in it on a daily basis over a week. So that had to be reviewed, and the key worker thing has been reviewed, and now we are talking about people who are key workers, but are specific, more importantly, do not have any childcare at all for their children, or anything that they can put into place that would make their child safe. If it would be unsafe for them, then they do need to be able to access a service. And I would say that service is important for some people, but for an awful lot of people it's been taken care of, and I'm grateful for the fact that people have gone away, had a second look at things, and put things into place. So once we start to think about who could be eligible, we do have the key worker status, but after that you have to be working for a company that is directly involved in something that is supporting the COVID-19 agenda, the national agenda, and you are in a role, a critical role, that is you know, once again contributing to the safety of the nation in that way. So we would understand and appreciate that if you work and you clean a hospital, you're a doctor, if you're working front line serving people in a supermarket, we know that those are the places. There's a lot of other jobs where quite possibly people might turn up for work, and if you're finding yourself at work and wondering and asking the question, is this critical, then it's probably best that your child's not with us, and that things are put into place. And I understand that that's difficult when it comes down to speaking to employers and things. And it has been made clear we're trying to uphold the national agenda, but as you would expect, safety's the number one thing. So you can go on the internet, you can go on the website, you can fill in the form. It will ask you to tick some very important boxes, and that allows us to know how many staff we need the next day. And then I check in later on at night, 8 or 9 o'clock. I have a little look at the website and know who we've got, and the staff are on hand. Staff have been brilliant. They've all got families as well as other circumstances, you know, wider, you know, health concerns and the worries that everybody else has, but they've been supremely compassionate, available and supportive, and not just for myself but for the children, really, in as much as quite happy to put themselves second and make sure that this agenda is right, and that's why it has to be just for the right children. So second thing, free school meals. Again, we've got another page on the website. It's really important that nobody goes hungry. If you are a registered free school meal, for free school meals, not universal free school meals, but you've actively had to come and register, then basically that means that you are entitled to a free school meals. We're serving them between 12 and 1. You have to order on the website the night before, so we know once again how many to collect. It does involve a chain of things where we have to go to somewhere to go and get them because they're not made on site. And the thing that's important to think about there is, if you are eligible, please don't put yourself in an unsafe situation for the sake of a cheese sandwich. Okay, so think carefully. Is it worth getting on a bus or commuting or walking a distance, particularly if you've got your children with you, if it's not safe for a cheese sandwich when you might be able to take care of that at home? If you can make a tin of beans and you know and you're okay, then I would suggest that's to be considered. If you're not, absolutely fine. It's right that you should come and see us. It's right that you should get something to eat. That's what the service is there for. So come and fill in your boxes and then come and collect the next day. Nobody needs to go hungry. We did the food bank, like I say, and the food bank got smashed just before we broke up. Lots of food got taken, which is great from the wider community, so that seems to be doing what it's supposed to do, and we're doing our best really to make sure that everybody's okay. If anybody's social situation, domestic situation rather, is unsettled or unsafe, if they're finding that they've got difficulties at home, food, you know, anything at all that you're worried about, where there's a risk, let me know. You will find the answer machine really, because we haven't got somebody sitting there, because that requires somebody to come in all day So you might have to leave a message, get back to you straight away, or send an email, and then I can get in touch. I'm still in touch with social workers, police, all the people that I would normally talk to every day, to make sure that nobody's unsafe, no children unsafe, no families unsafe, everybody knows me well enough to be able to get in touch, and I would expect and hope that they would if they are worried, even though school is in essentially closed. So finally, take those two sorted. Management. This is the management of your children, which is not my job at the minute. It's yours throughout the day, and that's difficult. I understand the strain and tension. I've spoken to lots of families where people have been concerned, and it's been on the headlines nationally, and worried about how best to entertain the children. Concerns and worries about the fact that they may not be being educated, or they're not in a program at the minute which is contributing to their education. So there's some good advice that generally I would share, that I'll offer you. It might be that we can look at a few more things in detail if we do any more of these films and things, this broadcast. I'm sure there's a couple of things I can come up with and think of to help you. Number one thing's relationships. Children will be a little bit unsure at the minute, uncertain. They're not necessarily going to be able to articulate that. They might be compliant if you ask them to do a page of sums. They may well not be, and what I'm finding is families, there's a bit of strain. People are falling out, tears. I've had conversations about that. Your relationship is the number one thing at the minute. We don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. We don't know what's going to be around the corner. It's a big change for your children. They're not seeing their friends. They don't have the structure. They don't have the social content, the social elements of the day, and it's indefinite. So they don't know when they're going to be going back to school. And for the kids, that's going to be really quite uncertain, quite worrying, potentially quite upsetting. And whilst they may be in a honeymoon period at the minute, we know that those questions will be, they'll be thinking about those things. So relationship has to be number one. So if it comes to falling out over doing any kind of homework, I would put that away. I would suggest anyway not trying to play the teacher role. I'm not playing it at home. I've given my children 4 things. I've said they need to each do 4 things every day. How they do it, when they do it, that's up to them, but mine are a bit older, so it works when they're probably in year 3, 4, 5 and 6. But certainly 4 things, and we've got 4 things, a list of things that you could choose to do, and then it's up to them at the end of the day to say that they've done them. One thing is to read half an hour to an hour a day. Switch everything off. If nothing else, if they're better at reading by the time they go back to school, your time's being well spent. Reading's the number one skill. Reading a book, dedicating some time. The Amazon Audible, they're doing the narrated stories. They've got all the classics on there. They've said that they're free while the children aren't at school. But any books that you do read, are all time well spent. So that would be my number one suggestion. After that, there's an endless list of things that are developmentally useful, important and educational. So board games, get the board games back out. As you would expect in my circumstances, in my tree house here, and thinking about social isolation, I decided to have the essentials in here, and so you can see we have got a scale electrics, which it's one of those things that you may choose not to play on very often these days with some of the things that children do. But get the board games out, get the toys out, play with them. You're probably at home as well, but put some time aside and talk to them, have a chat. Things like Monopoly, lots of skills involved, and we won't go into all of those right now, but even if it's Guess Who, or card games, learn chess, learn something together, do something where you're sitting alongside and with, and I think that can break up your day. And if you have got scale electrics, go for it. It's a retro classic. So the games, I would suggest, but then use your technology if you need to. The DB primary, the online things, there's lots that's really good. You have to kind of find it first and make sure that they're looking at the right things. No Googling. I wouldn't suggest sort of just sitting down and leaving them on YouTube. But there are some great things on YouTube to be able to help you, even for the youngest children, to look at numberjacks and all those sorts of things. If it's half an hour every day and you've got structure, then fantastic. Structure's really important. It's not an indefinite holiday like my son seems to think. It has to be that the lights go out, technology gets put away. If you end up in 6 weeks' time and spending all the time online, then there's bigger problems to worry about. So manage the habits, get the phones away, get them away in good time, get the lights out in good time, start the day ready to be somewhat productive. And then just think about all the great things that they can be doing. You know, the painting. Give them a project. If they're fanatical about Leeds United, then they can sit down and not Leeds United. Let's not do Leeds United. If they are fanatical about a good team, then they can go away and they can create a PowerPoint or paint or make a jotter or do something where it's project led and it's them pursuing their interests and sourcing and researching for anything that they're into. And that's not a bad thing to do, because it has a sense of ownership then, rather than you telling them to do something. I would avoid lists of things. You know, it's good to work on times tables, lots of work that you can do that. TT Rockstars, you can make posters, they can learn them, you can do quick fire things, but sitting down and doing sums, who's going to mark them, what's the incentive. You might end up with piles and piles of paper, and it's the kind of thing that I think can switch children off quite easily. So relationship number one, 3 or 4 things to do each day, little checklist of things that you're in agreement that could be good, and then let them choose, and then by the end of the day, every day, hopefully they've managed to be productive. Once you get a bit further down the road, we could think about a little bit more really, and I might even use my old school teacher chalkboard to show you 1 or 2 things that you can do with your children just to help them, you know, if you do want to do a little bit of very specific learning. We're kind of going to finish there. I think I've managed to cover everything on my agenda there, so I hope that it's been a little bit useful, and I may well choose to return to my treehouse or to broadcast once again, to be able to offer some help to people, and once again to say hello to the children. So have a nice evening, which is what I would normally say to everyone at the end of the day, from the front of the schoolyard, and take really good care of yourselves. That's the number 1 priority. So for all of this stuff, everything we've talked about, number 1 job right now, like I've been saying to my kids, is just to make sure that we beat this thing and that we stay safe and healthy in the meantime. So I'll be popping off now, and take really good care, everyone, please.